Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh, everybody. Do you know who I am? I'm Preacher Moss, comedian extraordinaire. However, this Labor Day, I won't be that guy. You know who I'll be? Mr. Isna. That's right. We're celebrating the 2021 Isna Virtual Conference going down on Labor Day, brothers and sisters. We got speakers, we got entertainment. All we need is you. It's going to be like a big old pot of gumbo. We just need to put you in there. So listen. Don't wait. Don't even worry about registration because it's free. Make sure that you're going to be there on the 4th and the 5th. I'll be looking for you virtually. And believe me, I understand what you're thinking of. You're looking at the screen going, this is going to be an incredible conference. But my goodness, Preacher Moss, that's one good-looking Muslim. See you there. All right, brothers, this is real talk. Before we get started, I want to give some quick shout outs. Sister Ree is not feeling well. Let's make sure we send some du'as towards Sister Ree, sick and shut in. Sister Nancy Mustafa, hope you're feeling better and recovering. Sister Ika, we hope that your family's doing well. Also, shout out to Sister Lorraine Kitchen. Also, shout out to Miss Eleanor. I love Miss Eleanor and Sister Lorraine. I said Sister Lorraine Kitchen, but there was one more person. Oh, Brother Kendrick Samuels. We hope all of y'all are doing well. You're feeling better. Listen, I don't really want to take time out because game recognizes game, especially when you're artists. So I am going to say this, and I'm going to try and put it in the most polite way. It's interesting when you run across a scholar that's an artist. It's a real different balance of a conversation that you're going to have. One of the reasons I wanted to have him on because I'd have a lot of questions because his art really, in some regards, meshes into his scholarship, and you can see that, and it's exciting, you know. I'm trying to contain my excitement, and the reason I'm trying to contain it is like, you know what? I want you to feel the same way. I don't want to give the emotion away. All right. So while this is our 500th episode, I believe this is going to be one of the most important episodes we have. One of the most important interviews we've had on this show, brothers and sisters. Without further ado, let's welcome to the stream, my brother, Dr. Bilal Ware. What's going on, beloved?
Chilling, man. Well, what's up with you? I love the ISNA ad. You know, that's one handsome Muslim. Don't hate me because I'm beautiful.
I was about to do my Morris Day. Yes.
I'm too pretty. Yeah.
I'm gonna make you love me.
MashaAllah. Nah, I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. Really been looking forward to this conversation for a long time. I'm just gonna say before right off the top, we'll just announce it as the Mutual Admiration Society because I've been a fan, ever since I learned about your work, for the very first time. With Allah made me funny, man. And it's like, to be honest, one of the reasons why I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long period of time is that this is one of the many things that we see eye to eye on, right? Is that the work of Islam really is the work of transforming the culture. It's got to be something beyond, something that simply takes place in mosques or in religious spaces, that takes place around lectures. It has to be actually something that we put out into the culture, using whatever creative skills, artistic skills, that the good Lord might have graced us with. And like y'all said, God made y'all funny, so you were gonna put your gifts back into service of the one who gifted you with them.
I'm going to tell you something. I've listened to Slum Prophecy a couple times. I run to it in the morning.
That's what's up.
I like Sabor. A kingdom gets me in the right state of mind because I tend to run right after Fajr.
Got you.
Or right after Tahajjud.
Yep.
Which is, neither one. It's just the part of the day where I don't have a lot of people talking to me.
Nice and quiet. Yep.
You know what I love, man, about your scholarship is when I read things like the books that you put out, Jihad of the Pen, Walking Quran. There's a scholarship to it. There's a rhythm to it where the writing doesn't have a lot of distractions. You're a musician. I'm an old retired musician. I still got my saxophone upstairs. There's something to be said about presenting ideas that don't have distraction, to the point where even when we're talking about some Islamic principles, if we took Islam about it, that's something you could put right out on the street.
Yep.
Like there's something that's applicable right there and then that people can pick up. You know, I'm not a big fan of people say gifts. Man, I don't like gifts because you got to take the wrapper off. Man, give that person, you know, give that person what they need right then, right there, man. And you know, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna shut up here in a minute.
Yeah.
But my thesis that I wrote to get my master's in Islamic education largely had to do with some of the conversations that we had.
Alhamdulillah, that's what's up.
And I'm going to tell you why I don't want to be quiet. Because in the conversations that some of you and I had over the years, so just people know we two DC dudes, so it's going to be like that. So if you hear the word sirs, I'm okay. You hear me say, you know,
we mean real DC, not Merlin, right?
Yeah, not Merlin. If you hear me say sirs, that's just me going back. And something I read in your work affected me. Like I read stuff. Walking Quran is a great book. And so if you Negroes out there that don't want to, like, you need pictures in a book, this is not the book for you.
No.
It's not a pop-up book. No. But here's the deal. In the first chapter, you hit upon something and it made me reverse my whole thesis. I remember getting my advisor upset because it reminded me that Allah Made Me Funny was the first, I want to say, artistic endeavor, particularly specifically with comedy, was like we framed, or I framed comedy as religious work. That was not, designed specifically for Muslims. Of course, it's something, but it was like the whole space is meant to fill that space. And I'm like, we do have art that functions as, of course, religious work, but it can be secular work. It can be good art that people appreciate if we know what the purpose is. But then on the other side, I'm like, I see when it doesn't work that way. When people borrow and appropriate from the culture, these are the things that set us back. So I'm going to hit you with a word. I've been looking this word up. Of course, when you look a word up, you got to see where it applies. In art, in our community, African-American Muslim community, the African-American community in particular, the idea of the concept of syncretism. That, can you explain that idea? Because that's a deep concept.
Yeah. So
that's a elite concept. I'm not being funny.
You went straight into the deep end of the pool. Actually, I'll give one slight preface. It reminded me actually of how my pops, God rest his soul, taught me to swim. He took me to Rock Creek Park, grabbed me by the arm and threw me in the water and said, "Sink or swim, boy." Now, what I didn't know is he had thrown me in a spot where he knew the depth. So he knew I couldn't drown there, but he wanted me to appreciate the urgency that would be required to keep my head above water. That's the first thing that you need to know about swimming. So well, I'll just say you just threw us in just the right depth of water. The ground is there. I know where it is, but this will impress upon people the importance of this conversation, but also the depth. So syncretism, traditionally used to describe the merging of two religious systems. Sometimes now also used to describe the merging of a religious system and a cultural system. And the way that I address this in the Walking Quran, and the reason why this is so relevant for our conversations as Black Muslims, specifically in my humble estimation, is that right now in our kind of contemporary mainstream Muslim community, so to speak, we know what we mean when we say that. Syncretism between Arab culture and Islam as a religion, syncretism between South Asian culture and Islam as a religion, those things pass as Islam. Whereas when there are accommodations that are made between Black cultural expression and Islam as a system of religious meaning, those are often demonized. Those are often targeted. Those are often we'll use the play on words, denigrated, right? Literally blackened. they're denigrated. And so for me, what I wanted to highlight, in my first work was just the depth of Black people's capacity to give authentic expression to African culture, to Black culture, and to Islam simultaneously without compromising either. And that is the work that, and this is, to return to the role of the artist, that's also the role of art and culture. You said that this book is not a pop-up book, and it for sure isn't. But you also said that I have a tendency to try to present things in a way that are going to be appealing, approachable, more approachable than most. So I learned that in two ways. One way was from my PhD advisor, who said to me, look, he said, a lot of academic writing takes relatively simple ideas and dresses it up with fancy words and complex jargon-filled prose to make people sound important. He said, what we're going to do is we're going to take complex ideas and put them in a language that anybody can understand. Right. And then the next point, and then you should hop in, is that when I started studying the African Islamic tradition, the West African Islamic tradition, the figure that most captivated me has always been Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba. Because he was a poet. He wrote rhymes. He wrote at least 200 distinct books in the Arabic language, which was his third language, by the way, that he was writing in. And some of those were collections of as many as 200 poems. Some of those poems contained as many as 5,000 lines. And what he was doing in writing that poetry, and what disciples in his movement did when they wrote Wolof language poetry modeled on his Arabic poetry, was that they were taking that legacy, that Islamic tradition, and they were rendering it in the language of the people. They were bringing it up to date in contemporary cultural expression through poetry, through the work of culture. And so what I'm trying to do, across the board in all of my different activities is to just, one, demonstrate that there is no fundamental irreconcilability between Blackness and Islam, one, and underline that, 100 times, say it louder for the people in the back, who ain't hear it. But then to not talk about the work of making, Islam speak and be relevant to our situation and our circumstance today, but to actually do that work. And that's why, like, I got out of retirement on the music side, and got back in the booth, got back to producing, and try to get in the game instead of just coaching from the sidelines.
But hip hop is that medium.
Yep.
That it gives a bridge. It gives a bridge. And what I'm saying is, I often feel like what you're doing, if you put it in the middle of a group of Black folk, a group of Latinos, a group of people who, they may be academic, they might be underserved, when they unpeel that wrapper, there's a voice that speaks to them. And when I say it's a voice, I said it doesn't have the distractions.
Yeah,
it's transitional thinking, it's transformative thinking. The last thing is transactional, and the only way it can be transactional is that people have a greater value of themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the impact of when you're putting out music out, or when you're putting out your books or your scholarly work. Like, I don't know if people understand that.
I mean, well, okay, so let's just cut to the heart of the matter. So the first thing to say is that, yeah, we're speaking from a particular subjective position as Black Muslims, right? Mm-hmm. But if everything we do becomes about an affirmation of our identity, then we are not being Black Muslims, we are performing Black Muslimness. Right?
Okay.
That there's a difference between talking about your identity and living it. There's a difference between rapping about Islam and rapping through it. The way that my partner, and I work with an extremely gifted, as you saw, from listening to the album, extremely gifted young MC, Chizabam, half Nigerian, half African American, also kind of, immersed in the culture in all the same ways I am, but much younger. But what we determined that, like, yeah, it had to speak to our people. And it needed to speak in a way that was authentic to our people. But if it only spoke to our people, if it only spoke to Black Muslims, then it was not doing its job. Because we have to be able to speak in ways that are universally relevant from our own specific experience. And that comes not with preaching to people, but with just like you said, speaking with clarity. Go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
No, I mean, You know, man, I like we were talking about syncretism. I said, you know, I have to be careful because I look at it outside of just religious work. I look at it in
Yeah.
terms of let's throw it out there, social justice.
Yep. Of course.
George Floyd, I was like, this is exactly what we talked about. But people create religions.
Yeah,
Like
they
people
do.
create religions,
That's the,
and
to
then
be
they
honest,
try to merge these religions.
that's look, if you really want to look at it, that's the basic. So the basic as a historian, right? The basic historical argument of Quran is just what you just said. is that God sends messengers and they set us right, and then after they're gone, people make up new religions. they you know what I'm saying? Like really, that's basically.
No, I mean I'm saying it. I literally watched in 4 years with Trump. I watched a new religion. Forget about a party. I watched a new religious belief.
Yep.
For these people, and it was valid for them.
Yep.
It's as valid as going to church on Sunday and getting communion, or doing Tarawih prayers and Ramadan. This was their practice.
Yep.
And I felt like, you know, if you're not careful, if they really know what they're doing, man, we in trouble. like we're in trouble.
Fortunately, the guy that was at the top of that movement, you know, couldn't have passed any of my classes. Like, you know what I mean? Like he wasn't the brightest bulb on the tree, that one, you know. So
nah, he couldn't get out of first gear in trucker school.
No,
but
I mean, so,
I'm gonna say,
I feel you though. You know, you're right. Yeah, no, people make new religions all the time.
But let me throw this one out. I'm reading this article. It's in the Washington Post.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that the Washington Post all of a sudden try to make you pay for online subscriptions, but
I don't be reading the Post no more. But go ahead.
Yeah, I can't give you that $4 every month. I just ain't got it in me. I ain't got it in me. I never pay for a Post. Everybody knows that. Mm-mm. Here's the deal, though. There was an article, and I want you to touch on this as an artist, but also academic.
Okay.
They talked about white supremacy. The only way it could last is if it becomes tan. I'm not.
Can I anticipate this argument? And so this means that like
the tanning of white supremacy.
Okay.
But there's a joke that we used to say. I say about Muslim comedians, it's an old Jewish joke. And the joke goes, how do you keep Jews out of the country club? You hire one and he keeps the rest out.
He keeps the rest of, oh, damn. Yo, that is too true though. That is
so
too
I'm
true.
Looking at this and
can't nobody oppress black people like black people now. You got to remember that. Let's not get it twisted. It's like when I read Things Fall Apart as an undergraduate, the great Chinua Achebe novel. The main character at one point in time was like, how do we get rid of all the white people? He was like, getting rid of all the white people, that would take an afternoon's work. He said, but the black people that work for them, that's the problem.
Oh, that's Franz Fanonish.
Yeah, exactly.
False ego ideal.
That's it.
Like
that's it.
Yo, but how do you break out of that? Because it seems like I'm reading this thing about tanning. I ran across something in the Quran that was like, it could happen, it could happen. But I think it's already happened. It's just like we don't realize that there are people in echelons, and they go to folks and say, hey, you want to be a boss? Yeah. Make sure they don't come in. All right, sir.
Jump down, turn around, pick a bale of cotton. Jump down, turn around, pick a bale of hay. Jump down. That's the get. You want me to bust up some shifero for your boss? Like, I mean, that's where we are. I'm gonna tell you, there's a brother, brilliant brother, taught at one of the small schools. So I mean, DC is my original hometown. I went to high school in Minneapolis. Lived there, came back to DC again, for undergrad. So I was in Minneapolis at this particular point in time. Brilliant brother, Professor Mahmoud El Khati is his name. And
Yes,
he
sir.
came to me and he said, call me by the name that I've gone by, ever since I was a kid, Butch, which is what I go by. It was my father's nickname. I'm Lil Butch, still in DC or in Georgia. I'm Lil Butch. So he said, Butch, you know how they train elephants at the circus? I said, nah. And also, where's this coming from? He said, let me just explain something to you. He said, when you have a young baby bull elephant, he said, you have to whip them with heavy lashes, and you have to take heavy chains and put them around their ankles, and you put them on like those iron rings that are anchored in concrete. That's what the chains have to be attached to, because he said a small baby bull elephant, little young thing, if it gets loose, it can trample a dozen people before you even know what happened, right?
Right.
He said, but once you've broken it, it can become a full-grown elephant, weigh several tons. He said, and you can tie it with any insignificant lash around the ankle, attach it to any insignificant peg. He said, you just have to make the sound of a whip cracking in the air, and that fully grown animal will never run. He said,
you just messed up the whole concept of going to a circus for me.
Yeah, because you realize it's just basically a bunch of animal slaves, which, I mean, that's kind of what the whole SeaWorld protest, on a difference. Like, Shamu is just tired.
You be at the circus, like, why is that elephant bound down to that white man? Now I know.
Now you know.
I know.
So which brought him around to the punchline, right? Which was I said, I think I understand. The point is that if you break somebody's spirit, or you break the spirit of a people, then they will colonize themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They will colonize themselves. You don't have to do it. You no longer need to continue to exert that continuous force upon that group of people. They have internalized the oppression. They bind themselves. We chain ourselves. We hold ourselves into these places. Yes, there's a lot of structural oppression. Yes, there's a lot of structural racism. But the biggest ties that actually bind us are the ones that are around our hearts, the ones that are around our imaginations, and those are being transmitted through our culture.
I had a couple of rants last year, probably a few. I did something called Muslims in Blackface.
Look. That's exactly it. Go.
I have this thing. I just have this thing about people who can watch folks struggle, go through it, and when it's safe, come around and go, I'm with you. You're worse than the guy that's been beating me up. At least I knew what their intentions are. I have no idea what your intentions are. And I call it blackface.
It's the difference between the open enmity of Quraysh and the concealed enmity of the hypocrites of Medina.
Oh, you gotta say that again. That's worth the price of admission. You got to say that one again.
It's the difference between the open enmity of Quraysh and the concealed enmity of the hypocrites of Medina. They say that they're with you, but they're lying. They're bringing fitna on themselves. They're waiting to see you fall. They're hedging their bets. They have no interest in ever risking any institutional control, no financial control, no social capital of any kind. They want to be seen at the side of Black folks in moments of struggle. But when you look for them, when the battle gets thick, they're not standing there.
But that's what I felt about your presentation, or I want to say presentation of the word syncretism. I'm like, that's what people do. I feel like one of the biggest hindrance of the Black church is we've let everybody in. We've taken your bastardization of religion and made it spiritual and real, and then you come back around and you have what it is and you mess it up again. You know what it is, like everybody says, hey man, oh, that music is whack. That music is whack. And then you come back a year later, everybody's bumping that music. I thought you said it was whack. Yeah, we know how it is. I mean, you're an artist. You're an artist. It's nothing worse than I'll give you a prime example. I had a joke. I was working with this comedian who shall remain unnamed. But if you see this, I'm talking about you, Negro. I told a joke on the road, little club in Florida. This guy dogged me about that joke. Now, it was in its early stages, but it was a killer joke. I got booked to come back. I look in town. Oh, my man's in town. I go back to this club. He's doing the joke.
You know he's doing the joke.
And doing it badly. And I just said, listen.
What we used to call them back in the day, crab MCs. All they do is fight.
Well, what is why did the crab MCs, are we allowing crab MCs to just hang around? Are we giving them opportunities? You know, I talk about the Black church, and ironically, when we were talking about social justice, George Floyd, I'd say for the last 18 months, 24 months, the Black church has been empty. They haven't been on the game.
Yep.
Matches are quiet. You know, we do the things that are expected. You know, we do the formulaic type of stuff. You know, and it was almost like, you know, when the nation doesn't show up, you know it's a problem, right?
It's a problem. Okay, so let me. This is the reflection that's coming to mind. So the thing is that a people is going to be vulnerable to cultural appropriation from other folks when they don't understand the intrinsic value in their own tradition. Right?
Yeah.
That like I heard Imam Fode Drame say this, and he dropped my jaw with this when the great contemporary, West African scholar. He said the reason why colonizers are always telling Africans to put down their culture, he said, is because as soon as you drop it to take their culture, they're gonna pick yours up.
Yeah.
As soon as you let go of it, they're gonna pick it up. And that's literally that's what your man's was doing, or your I don't know if it was a sister, who it was.
It was a dude.
Yeah, I assumed it was.
Yeah,
but basically, like he's disparaging it so that he can lower the price. It's like there's a saying that's attributed to Rabi al-Adawi, the great female Sufi saint from Basra. She said, "Don't trust anyone who's constantly disparaging the dunya." She said because only the buyer disparages the goods.
That's deep. Look, I want us to monopolize the conversation. You got a lot of people in the comment section.
Let's go. Let's get it.
You got a lot of fans. Sister Tana is she's a consultant producer. I mean, you got everybody. You got Sister Jamisa, you got Sister Rashida, you got Johnny L, my little brother Johnny L. Thomas. You got Brother Altar for C. He's our Canadian ambassador to show, my main man. We got people all of Adam Khan. We got folks, man. Sister Reed, we hope you're feeling better.
Yeah, and congratulations on the 500th episode, man. That's beautiful, and it's an honor to be part of that, for real.
But we got some questions coming up. That's my little brother JT.
Let's get it in.
What's that first question, Sister Donna? All right. Thank you, Sister Jamisa.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. All right. Altaf wa alaikum assalam.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate you, brother. Mary Moss is my mom, just so you know.
MashaAllah. Greetings to Ma Dukes. Thank you for tuning in.
You're a bad dude. That's I think that's the article I was talking about.
Got you.
Let's go ahead and jump to a question.
Inshallah.
Roberto Rashid, what's going on, Latin? I like both of those brothers.
I got to be honest. I ain't been a regular reader of the Post.
That's all right.
Since Wilbon and Kornheiser used to be on the sports page. That tell you how far back I go with the Post.
I know what you're talking about too. I miss him.
I do too.
So the first question is, how do we reverse this when it's our own selves? How do you keep them out of the country club, hire one to keep the other ones out?
Yeah, I mean, so I go to Malcolm, on so many things. He was my guide to Islam in the first place, autobiography of Malcolm X. And what Malcolm said is the problem, with the Negro is that if the Negro see a Negro selling ice and a white man selling ice, he's gonna think the white man's ice is colder.
Yeah.
that that's the basic issue. The basic issue is that we have internalized other people's perceptions of us. And the reason why I ultimately became a historian, because look, my pops was a locksmith with a 6th grade education. Okay. You know, and a part-time hustler, God rest his soul, you know, beautiful man when he was at his best, hard man when he was at his worst. But the reason why I turned to try to recover these stories from our past is because I needed to know like what we're capable of beyond what's said about us in this environment, right? So being able to come across people, you know, these examples like Sheikh Ahmed Ubamba, you know, who I mentioned before. So the first part is to like you address that ingrained inferiority complex by actually reappropriating your past. Actually cultivating like a sense of pride in who you are and where you come from. And look, for people, you know, from DC, from our generation, that's easier probably than for most, because we grew up in an entirely Black environment, you know, like
true,
entirely Black environment. So that part of like, you know, just at least being willing, you know, to claim yourself. But that's the basic issue. And Du Bois pointed to it. He said the problem of the Negro is double consciousness, you know, always measuring your own soul according to another man's tape. So that's why whether from my academic works like the Walking Quran or through the album, you know, Slum Prophecy, I'm always rooting it in our experience, our understanding, like our framework, validating that, raising that up, using that to learn and to teach, and not feeling like we have to have an inferiority complex on a civilizational basis, you know, to white folks, to Arabs, or to anybody else. The last thing I'll say on that is what Sheikh Ibrahim Yas said. Sheikh Ibrahim Yas, another one of those great West African scholars, he said that he said if God said in the Quran that he created you in different tongues and colors so that you would know one another, he said what's implied by knowing one another is loving one another. The same way that in the Hadith Qudsi, when God says I was a hidden treasure, so I created the world that I might be known, what God is intimating is that he created the world that he might be loved. So he said, think about that. So it's deep. So now he says, so how can you love another people if you hate your own?
Woo. All right, I gotta take a breath on that one out.
You think about it, man, because that's the basic issue, is that we don't have love for these other people. We have internalized hatred for ourselves. We can't appreciate what's beautiful in their culture because we're sycophant consumers of it. We're ripped out of our own cultural understandings and forced to take on other people. So it breeds dissimulation. It breeds that blackface minstrel attitude where you can't separate the mask from the face anymore.
What face?
Right? The blackness that you're performing for the society to be what the society expects you to be ultimately becomes inseparable from who you yourself are. You become this figment of the white imagination. So
that is stunning.
Everything that underlies my whole approach is to say, nah, we through with all that. Like we're validating, lifting up, and raising that which we have brought into the world in the way of knowledge, that which we have brought into the world in the way of culture. Whether it's going back to the ancient Egyptians and the first of the prophets to teach by the pen Idris, whether it's going back to West African scholars, whether it's going back to the Black companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, we are going to make sure that if no one else cares the role that we played in the story, we at least will know it ourselves. And we at least will come to esteem our own historical contributions.
But we went to this space, man, of what they call cancel culture, right?
Yeah.
Which we're going to go. I'm looking around like I think cancel culture was just the beginning. Like they're literally trying to cancel historical imperative.
Oh yeah.
Like you got used to Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby. These folks, we got something for you. Like Texas is trying to rewrite law, history books. You know, you realize that, I don't know if you know this, you probably do, but when people select textbooks, they usually select the textbook that Texas select, the one that they go with. So Houghton Mifflin, all these. So there's a danger if Texas can get these people, iconic people from civil rights, taken out of the out of literature. Even we're going to remove Susan B. Anthony.
Yeah.
Under the auspices of critical race theory or the dangers of critical race theory. It's like, man, you can have a generation of kids who can literally, black kids that can literally not know who Malcolm X is.
If we continue to delegate to others the responsibility for educating our own children, yes. But what I'll say is, the I'm trying to remember now the name of the bookshop, the Afrocentric bookshop, straight up Georgia Avenue, that had the thank you, the full-size Sphinx right up, right out front. The point is that and that conversation that I mentioned before in Minneapolis with Mahmoud El-Kati, that was outside of Uhuru Bookstore in South Minneapolis, not too far actually from where George Floyd was murdered. This was a generation before that. The point is that if we continue to keep these spaces where we talk to one another about our past, that's that, that's that underground knowledge railroad. We can never, under any circumstances, rely on the people who tried to strip our history and past away from us to give it back to us. We can't, why that's crazy. Who would do that? We have to own responsibility for this. We did not create the situation, but it is our problem, and nobody is going to fix it but us. And that's why I leave alone a lot of stuff that I could potentially do, because if it's not about God, his messenger, and our people, it's none of my business.
Man, we didn't get to talk about this when we were talking before. We were on the phone.
Yeah.
But what is this penchant now for just absolutism? The dumbest people in the world seem to believe the dumbest thing in the world, but they have a conviction that is impenetrable. I am stupid. I'm going to be stupid all the way. And I mean, it's toxic. To be quite honest, it's toxic, but this is a culture that's not getting canceled out. This is a cult. We were talking about, this becomes a religion. Stupidity is religion.
Stupidity is a religion.
Stupidity it's been a religion.
People are deeply committed. No, look, I can't argue against that. It comes with its own doctrines, rituals, and practices, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, listen, so if we want to zoom out, right, to explain this, white supremacy in and of itself is a fundamentally irrational proposition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it is bound to produce fundamentally irrational people.
Why are they protected?
Because that's the whole purpose of white privilege. That's the whole purpose of the traditional version of the American experiment, is that you reward mediocre whiteness with wealth, advancement, and position, and you punish exceptional blackness with violence and repression. Listen, my father had a sixth grade education, but my father was a musical genius. He was brilliant. My grandfather, was an actual genius. But actual geniuses that, grew up in Georgia in the 30s didn't get, if they happen to be black, were very dangerous people for the society, as a whole, even when they weren't dangerous people, right? So the point of all that is just to say that, people like Trump, they're the inevitable conclusion of white supremacy. What do you think is going to happen when you reward mediocrity over and over again for generation after generation, and you punish black excellence, you punish Latin excellence? One of my colleagues, one of my friends from Senegal, was the one that pointed this out to me, because when he heard the whole of my story, he said it's an incredible story about how much talent America wastes in black people. He said this is the reason why America trails behind, other places, is because America systematically wastes its most talented individuals in order to preserve white privilege. Because he pointed out, he said, Bilal, you've become a very, very good historian of Africa. He said, but recall that you wouldn't even have been able to go to college if it wasn't for the fact that you could throw a baseball 91 miles an hour. You didn't have an academic scholarship. You had a baseball scholarship.
I forgot, bro. I forgot to tell them that you were a baller,
But that's the actual fact. I didn't know that I was better at school than sports until I got to college, because the environment that I grew up in wasn't one that rewarded that kind of academic, endeavor. So, but it was something where, like if you were a ball player or a rapper, there was a way for you. And so I never wanted to be anything other than a ball player or a rapper. And being a ball player got me into school.
Okay, well, I'm gonna throw another question at you.
Yeah.
How do you read the connection between African American and foreign-born Muslims? Like, how do you?
Yes. So the first thing to say is not our responsibility, theirs.
Okay.
That's the first thing to say about that, is that I don't know, like, nigga, you in my house. Like,
that's America. Yes.
We've been here for 400 years, 400 plus years before there was a United States of America. We're the ones that brought Islam to these shores. It is incumbent upon you as muhajirin to greet the Ansar, show them their proper respect. Y'all are the ones that are fleeing from other places and migrating here. This is our home that our blood, sweat, and tears established. So the first thing just literally comes with a disposition of humility and respect on the part of that foreign-born Muslim community. But what we usually get instead is condescension, anti-Black, racism that's very thinly veiled. And the thing is I'm not gonna go chasing after these people, man. Like,
well, that's something like Dr. Jackson talked about. In his book, the Third Resurrection. Not a pop-up book either.
Not a pop-up book, no.
So hey man, look, all the sources.
Look, if they Dr. Jackson, that's a Philly cat too. Like, when they let us hood Negroes get through to a certain level, we gonna come with it on the academic end. Don't think we won't.
Oh no, without a doubt. But he and I were talking. He was about to speak at Howard at this time, and we were talking like freely. I'm not an academic like that, but I'm like, we know where we come from.
Man, you's a scholar. That's.
But I said, Dr. Jackson, and we were talking. He was like, I got to apologize to our people. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah. He goes, I had this idea, this romantic notion that our African American Muslims and immigrant Muslims were gonna get this information. We're gonna galvanize. And he's like, it ain't happening. He goes, that's out of the window. I'm like, let me shut up and listen to OG teach. He goes, here's the problem in our silence and how we separate from our cultural history of Islam, which is, of course, Ahmadiyya, which is, of course, Nation of Islam, Lost Foundation. Yep. In the space,
Gods and Earths, more science.
Gods and Earths, yep. Robinson, and the idea that we were going to move to this new marketplace. And everybody's going to say, oh, this Islam is so good. He goes, it never happened. He said, and in that process, we gave away some of the things that made it special. So now you have African-American Muslims that can't talk about racism freely without getting funny looks, because the dialogue to America, to the oppressor, has to be either when they're talking about anti-Black, well, no, you're going to talk about anti-Muslim, yep, racism, anti-immigrant Muslim. And I'm like, you have no place for your own agency.
So I'll return in a moment to a very similar conversation that Dr. Jackson and I had outside the Ann Arbor Masjid, because he was my academic big brother, showed me the ropes when I first got hired at Michigan. That was before he came out to USC. And then a few years later, I followed him out to the West Coast, coming out here to UCSB. So I want to return to that in a moment. But the thing that I want to say, before that, is that we have given up the ground of cultural relevance by assuming these foreign models for what is appropriately Islamic. So just think about in the 60s and 70s, the most iconic figures in many ways in Black culture as a whole were Malcolm and Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Okay, which allowed Black Muslims and thereby Muslims to have an outsized impact on American society in the realm of cultural relevance and symbolic meaning. Really interesting book written by my colleague Eula Taylor at UC Berkeley, called, I think it's called Women of the Nation. She wrote about how many female artists were joining the Nation of Islam in the 60s, which she thought of as incongruous because some of the gender doctrines that were associated with the nation. But what kept coming up time and time again is that it was the place that allowed for the most authentic cultural expression of Blackness for all these different Black artists in that time. Now think about that. Now fast forward to where we have much more demographic weight and almost no cultural relevance, right?
Yeah.
Because we've given away that purchase on the culture that comes with an authentic Black positioning with respect to Islam. We gave that away, assuming foreign models instead. And it goes back to something that you said, and this is I'll say this and I'm gonna let you go. When I gave a paper, I gave a presentation, and it was me, Dr. Jackson, and Imam Zaid on a panel. And that was when I was like, oh, okay. I was like, oh, I'm on a panel with the two of them. It's like, okay, well, I better come with it. Like I better be, bringing big facts, because these are the people that I've been looking up to, for a generation. So after my talk, somebody said that your presentation was the only one in a 3-day conference that directly addressed the problem of anti-Black racism against the Black Muslims in the broader American Muslim community. And they said, do you want to know why I think that is? And I said, I'd love to hear it. And she said, because you're the only one that's not eating out of their hands.
Yeah, brother. I meant to throw this out to you as well.
Go ahead.
This is ISNA weekend.
Look, I'm not trying to throw you
after your speech.
I'm not trying to throw you shade.
ISNA, I renamed ISNA Islamic Society for Negro Advancement.
Well, look, look, the speech that I gave for ISNA last year, listen, you guys do know who you're calling when you call me to give this talk, right? I'm gonna tell you the truth, because there is no way forward for the Muslim community in being complicit with anti-Black racism. There is no way to be on the right side with God when you are siding with oppressors against the oppressed. Period. Full stop. Ever, under any circumstances. The people of God, whether you're reading the Quran, whether you're reading the Seerah of the Messenger of God, alayhi salatu wasalam, you always find the people of God fighting against the fundamental social injustices of their time. Why? Because that's what makes them the people of God.
Okay, we got a quick question from Mark Man.
Imam Mark, salaam alaikum, Imam Mark.
Man, Mark, double in. With all due respect, this is a little try to put the blame on a predicament on following foreign-born ideologies instead of other factors.
Here's what I'll say to that. I'll just return to your paraphrase of Dr. Jackson's statement, is that we expected this to work better. Right, this interaction between foreign-born Muslims and Black Muslims, and I'll return to answer this question directly. Here's the factor that we didn't account for, is that the ocean that we were swimming in for the entirety of the interaction was American white supremacy. So the point is that anything that takes place within the context of American white supremacy is going to have the impacts of the imprint of American white supremacy on if the non-Black Muslim community isn't directly addressing the problem of classism, racism that are inherent in the way that Black people are treated in this country, then they're simply going to reproduce those dynamics. So for me, obviously, I'm not going to say that the entirety of the blame is on, you know, foreign-born Muslims. We started the conversation with the realization that many of us have internalized a lot of these understandings, and we don't value that which we ourselves have. But I'm gonna take that understanding, you know, with me, you know, and until I see evidence to the contrary, I'm gonna continue to believe that a fundamental factor that structures the way in which non-Black Muslims and Black Muslims interact in this environment is feelings of, whether they're explicitly articulated or not, feelings of racial supremacy and cultural condemnation of Black people on the one hand, and internalized feelings of inferiority and structural impediments in terms of access to resources on the side of Black folks. So until we're addressing those, we're going to continue to reproduce the same dynamics. I'll put it like this. Steve Biko put it this way. He said the problem with mixed race organizations in resisting apartheid in South Africa, he said, is that when there were white people inside Black resistance organizations, he said they were white South Africans. So in spite of the fact that they were doing anti-racist work, they were reproducing racist ideologies and racist behaviors inside the organizations themselves. The enemy is already inside the house. If these people do not have anti-Black racism pulled out of their hearts, then the effort to build those coalitions is compromised. And when I say these people have anti-Black racism pulled out of their hearts, I'm not just referring to the anti-Blackness of many of the immigrant Muslims, but also the internalized anti-Blackness and inferiority complex that we bear within ourselves.
I mean, you know, I think I've been a little critical at times, I'm not gonna lie, of some of the Muslims, because I realized I came up in a different time.
Yes.
I saw activism in Muslim communities a different way. So I'm a child of the 60s. I saw, you know how Mayfair mansions, the nation come clean out a whole drug market, no guns, no. And I said, because it was the presentation, at least for Muslim men, that this Islam was very masculine. Extremely masculine.
Oh, yes.
For the sisters, it was extremely feminine, but it was strong.
Yep. Empowering, yeah.
And it was empowering. And that was the thing that led people, of course, to join and ask questions about Islam. Where is that gone? I know we're going. I don't want to go over. I don't want to encroach on your time. I know you got family. Peace and blessings to your family. Give them thanks for letting us have a generous loan of you for the show. But where is that gone, man? I've said things about some folks that it just didn't have heart. I have literally called some Muslims sorry. I said, dude is moist. Like, dude,
butter soft,
like butter's like a butter. Could crush a grape with a sledgehammer, yelling Islam. I'm like, bro,
from the RZA couldn't wrap your way out of a wet paper bag with scissors in your hands. Like,
and I'm like, but I'm seeing him lead people, and I'm like, look, we're in a state of war. This thing is not over. This thing is not over. We're fighting for the future of our youth. We're fighting for our women. We're fighting for our men. We're fighting for our culture, our identity. We're fighting against people who don't know how to fight, but they don't have to because the laws protect them. We have all of these things. And I'm like, yo, it's going to come to a point where the fight is not going to be held on the minbar. And it is, you're going to have to go out and present this culture where people go, ooh, I ain't think of it that way.
And that
listens to Slum Prophecy and go, yo, I didn't think it was coming like that.
That's been the response, to the album, was that I think, people just, expected, well, one, because, they thought that it would be Muslim rap, right? In other words, like rapping about being Muslim, and therefore kind of performing, an Islamic normativity in a certain way, that when it just hits them hard as music and as speaking in a culturally relevant way, then they realize that like it first has to stand as an art. Like that was the problem with Du Bois. Du Bois tried to write as a novelist and was a terrible novelist, because for him, all art had to be propaganda. You had to be constantly pushing the message with the art. Whereas if you do that in a relentless fashion, you compromise the art. Like the key is you first have to respect the art form. The beats have to be hard and the bars have to be, fire. Like that's just the way that it has to be. And then you can lace a message into the culture that's actually driven by Islamic understandings, that's driven by, a fear of the day of judgment, that's driven by a concern for the darknesses that are in the human soul. And that basically what we wanted to do was basically put the autobiography of Malcolm X on wax. Like
I think the thing is, for the non-Muslim, I don't like to use that word, but for people who are not Muslim, if you listen to the album, the best part about it, it's going to give you a realignment of your thought process.
Oh yeah.
It's like, I'm going to give you a little bit of history it's enough where you go, I need the rest of the story.
And that was also the idea. And I told people this. Look, I said the model is Wu-Tang for Sufis. The idea is that, the 5%ers dropped a whole bunch of little trail of breadcrumb references in their lyrics that had people always curious to learn more about what they was talking about.
But that's real though.
Exactly, because if you just if you just go saying it, all it's like, okay, well, I heard them. Like.
But the question is, what?
I know.
Can the devil fool them? Can the devil fool a Muslim?
Do you mean to say the devil fooled us for us? The community interpretation said that we receive a gold for our labor in this nation.
It's still going to be there.
It's time to drop the bomb and make the devil fight. That's it. I'm still on that. You know what I'm saying? Like that's still like, gets me. That still reaches me. So the idea was basically to do that, except to have authentic Islamic doctrine hidden behind the curtain. So that's the thing that's actually driving, both the sound and the lyrical content. So alhamdulillah, it's the response has been overwhelming. We had a promoter. When we shared, our first week sales figures, they said that we have people that have, social media followings of 200,000 people that can't sell this many albums in a month as we all sold in the first week.
No, man, and you know why it is? Because it's real. It's
it's real music. It's real music. It's real music.
But we need to know before we get out of here, beloved. We need to know we get the album.
Just use bit.ly/Slum Prophecy. That's the easiest way to do it. You can also follow my Instagram. There's a link tree there, and that's at Ware. And we after we hit our sales targets for the album, we released a couple singles to Spotify. So you can get Kingdom on rotation now on Spotify. You can get Nostalgic on rotation. You can get
you're on iPhones and you're on iTunes too.
Yeah, on iTunes too. Yep, exactly. So we got a few tracks on all the platforms, but if you want the whole album, you got to come buy the album, because we're also trying to make it a sustainable, art form for the artist. And that's also been a beautiful part. Like during the month of Ramadan, had a team of 7 Muslim recording artists out here during the last 10 nights of Ramadan. We would do dhikr and salawat after we would break our fast, and then we'd get in the booth and it would be prayer. Yeah, man. So we were like literally taking turns, like doing dhikr and salawat and recording, like all throughout the night, right up to Fajr. Pray Fajr, have our little last drink of water, then pray Fajr and then go to sleep until Dhuhr time, talk through what we wanted to work on, sit and build together in the afternoon. And then, as soon as the sun set, we was on it again.
Back at it, man.
We was back at it. It was beautiful.
That's that love word, man. Build.
Build.
That's that love word, brother. Build.
Real talk.
Look, beloved, I'm not gonna leave you, man. I'm not gonna keep you. We normally only do an album.
Yeah.
50 minutes, but we can't get you on it. Wait, we got one more. Black female scholars need empowerment to fight back the injustice against the support of the female fellows. We need to reproduce and revive the history of our great African American scholars.
Yes.
Amen to that.
Amen to that. Amen to that. I'll say just one thing on the way out with that. Before she passed away earlier this year, may God have mercy on her. I had a number of opportunities to sit at the feet of the great scholar Sheikh Mariam Niasse, daughter of Sheikh Ibrahim Niasse. Taught Quran in her own school in Dakar, the capital of Senegal, from 1952 until she passed away. So 70 years she was teaching Quran. The mother of my close friend and colleague, Professor Usman Khan, who teaches Islamic studies at Harvard, right? These are people that have trained scholars, both in the traditional sense and in the academic sense. And Sheikh Mariama was one of these exemplars. Listen, we have, especially in the African tradition, these female scholarly heroes. And that's also, to be frank, that's one of the places where I feel like borrowing foreign cultural models has diminished, because listen, black women, have not been putting up with that, you're going to be neither seen nor heard type stuff. That's just
not meaning I know.
That's never been, a thing in Black culture. So Black women have expressed Islamic excellence through scholarly and spiritual achievement, and that's what we, especially as Black Muslim men, need to be facilitating that, cultivating that, nurturing it, in the same way that, ultimately, as Black people are trying to get free within our own community, we need sincere allies amongst the non-Black Muslims that are going to help make space for us. Well, the men need to do the same thing for the women.
I mean, my brother, you got a comment from Sister Reese talking about Black women. We don't do well with it.
No, ma'am.
Man, my brother, I appreciate your love you, and I think I hope,
too, bro.
Inshallah, that I shut up long enough so you can spill that genius, give us some gems. As always, man, I appreciate you as a fellow brother, artist, native Washingtonian. I'm old school. I'm old school Washington. Born at Columbia Hospital for Women. You can't even find that joint anymore.
I was born in Walter Reed, also within the city limits.
You know what I'm saying? But
I do.
Man, I really appreciate it, and I hope number one, people go out, just buy the album.
Yeah, the album's hot. That's no joke.
There's no one. Number two is the things that were said. They're not meant to just die here on this stream. The idea is that you guys are going to go out and cultivate conversations and discussions and have your own action points in terms of how you affect culture. Our silence is self-toxicity, I like to say. And we can't tend to hold it in. We kill ourselves with it. You're not doing anybody. You're not doing any favors with that, number one. Then number two is it's not the tradition. It's not a traditional prophetic tradition. So it's like if you can move beyond all the itinerant stuff that's around here, brothers and sisters, Dr. Butch, Dr. Bilal gave a powerful, I want to say, casework study for a lot of things that are not happening in our space. And, I want to say, hey, listen, I'm not perfect. I don't have all the answers, but I'm not inactive. And I don't believe anyone else is inactive. And I just want people to go out here and let's, in the words of Honorable Elijah Muhammad, got to do for self. It's got to do for self. So my brother, man, much love to you, man. And then when I get out to California, I still want to tape you for that series.
Let's make it happen, man. And listen, anytime you want to continue the conversation on the Shout Out Show, in all sincerity, I'm at your service. And I'll just say one last thing in that respect. When I was pondering, getting back to the music after a long time, not doing it, you were one of the people that was extremely supportive, through all phases of it, so and helping me own that process again. So the quality, in the product has everything to do, with the people that mentored and nurtured it, and you're certainly amongst them. So thank you.
Hey man, anything for my brother, that.
Right back at you, man.
Anything for my brother. So everybody, we're gonna ride out. So Tana, I'm not gonna do the instant commercial. We're just gonna ride out on some tunes, if you will. I'm gonna let it play, and then we'll go to Black. Everybody that's in the space, brother Aaron Sellers has something. Did you put that up? You got all kind of people, man.
Tell him to hit me up on the Instagram too. We can
hit him up on Instagram as well.
Yep.
Make sure you do that.
I can handle this one quickly. The hadith about Bani Arfada are the important thing to study. The Prophet alayhi Abdul Salatu Wasalam applauded musical performance of Abyssinians who danced, drummed, and sang poetry over the dancing and drumming recitation. Aisha was watching over his shoulder, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he turned to her and asked her, did she not enjoy the performance? When they were making their musical performance, he said, Dunakum Bani Arfada, go on, Bani Arfada. Basically, in the parlance of the time, he told him to get it. So the point is that the point is that while we understand that people can have an argument that certain kinds of music should be discouraged as a matter of scrupulousness, I've never been one that's taken seriously the position that music is categorically forbidden. If the music is righteous and uplifting and the themes are righteous and uplifting, then it can be part of divine service, whether it's hip hop, rhythm and blues, rock, country, folk, spoken word, you name it. If God gifted you with artistic, ability, and you are coloring within the lines, then do your thing.
Do your thing. All right. We get ready to get out here, and I'm serious.
Go ahead.
Aaron Sellers, another DC homie coming on the spot, man. Shout out to you, brother Aaron. Anything you need from me, if you need me to come on your show, you got me.
We'll do it.
We'll do it. I'm in a heartbeat.
Sooner than later.
I just want to make sure, man, people appreciate this man.
Appreciate you.
Been appreciate him for a minute. I just want y'all to appreciate him. Keep him in your duas. Keep his family in your duas. Brothers and sisters, that's a shout out show. That's our 500th episode, man, and it was a banger. All right, my brother. Take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We gonna rock out. We came in on Kingdom. Can I go out on Kingdom?
Go out on Kingdom.
Much love, bro.
Thanks a lot, man. It was beautiful. Appreciate it.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Dr. Butch. Thank you, beloved.
As long as we keep our heads to the sky, we'll be all right. Keep our heads to the sky. Big faith we gotta carry to survive. Cause heaven will open the doors to the kingdom. Take us high. Let's give her positive vibes. Every day's a struggle, but make it paradise. Lil Brianna often sits and ponders. Never thought at 16 she would become a mama. But it is what it is, and she kept it for the honor. Running in and out of jail, her baby father in that life deep. Smoking, sipping, drinking, not knowing where he might be. Making promises he know that he won't keep. As the cycle continues, another beautiful soul who's been used and abused will be as long as we keep our heads to the sky.